And so you have no way of knowing what if anything, was erased.
No, sir. I wasn't asked to do analysis.
Who would ask you to do that?
The case agent in this case.
Then you possibly can tell us that?
Possibly.
To this day, you weren't asked, right?
No, sir.
I went back on that phone yesterday or 2 weeks ago or a month ago if somebody from law enforcement asked you to do that, right?
At any time.
You don't know why no one asked you that, right?
No, sir.
Thank you. The third one, please. What's the IME number?
356-448-108-73-2596.
And where would I find that IME number on the actual phone? How would I find it?
Typically, in these type of devices, if you open up the SIM card tray, you will see a very small number, and it is imprinted in that area.
Do you check anything with SIM cards?
I can.
Did the first phone that we talked about, the first IME number, did you check that one, the SIM card?
Typically, SIM cards only have about 3 phone numbers attached to them.
Asking, did you check it was my question.
No, sir.
Why not?
I was not requested to.
The second phone that you discussed the IME number and the description, belonging, or the name associated with it was Dominique Jones. Did you check SIM card for that one?
No, sir.
How come?
I was not requested to.
Could you tell when a phone went in service or when it was purchased by looking at it or doing an analysis?
Not necessarily, sir.
Possibly do that?
Possibly.
I would ask you to do that on the phone that had Dominique Jones's name associated with it.
No, sir.
And the third phone, can you tell us what the IME number? Can you tell us any description you have of that phone?
There was no description added prior to my involvement.
So you have no other identifying?
I mean, I have the device information.
Tell us that, please.
It is an Apple iPhone with the IMEI number that was associated that I just told you of. It's got an iOS operating system, and it is black.
Or anything about a case?
No, that there was heavy front screen damage, however.
Okay. And is that Mr. Rudolph's phone, or you can't tell us that?
It does not have that listed directly.
How about indirectly, sir?
Yes.
All right, how about the fourth phone?
Are you ready, sir?
Wait for you.
356-403-87-163-4313.
Description there of that type of phone or what it is?
It is an Apple iPhone, blue.
It doesn't say if it's a 10, 12, or 13?
No, sir.
Did you figure that information out?
Yes.
You don't have that on there.
No, sir, I don't.
Do you have anything else identifying directly or indirectly whose that phone is?
No, sir.
Download that phone?
I was unable to.
And you don't know whose that is?
Knowing now that it was this decedent's.
Okay. And you had a fifth phone?
Yes, sir.
Just tell us the IME number for that one.
350-77-77-36-312-603.
Any question? Can you give us a description on there?
It is an iPhone 12 Pro Max.
Anything else on there in your notes? Color?
Gold. Apple iPhone.
Any names associated with it directly or indirectly?
It looks to, based on the download, belong to Tyler Robinson.
Okay. You could also get information from phones without downloading them by subpoenaing the phone carrier, can't you?
You can.
Right. You can get call logs from them probably, right?
Yes, sir.
Text logs, see who they texted.
Possibly.
Incoming and outgoing calls.
Again, possibly.
You can also get triangulation. If the phone was not in airplane mode, you can get triangulation to tell where that phone may have been at any given time, right?
Possibly.
And if you don't subpoena them, you would never know, right?
That's correct.
You were never given a phone by anyone identified directly or indirectly named Christopher Lowe, were you?
Not that I'm aware, sir.
You don't have a college degree at all, do you?
No, sir.
You have no degree in this type of analysis, do you?
No, sir.
Learned on the job, basically.
Yes, sir.
That's all I have. Thank you.
All right, any redirect?
Yes.
Off IME number. And you're not able to tell us China today that number. Is that common? Is that the way you prepare the reports?
Yes, very common.
You identify the phone by the IME number.
Correct.
And as it relates to the defendant's phone, Mr. Rudolph's phone, although that screen was cracked, were you able to still successfully complete an extraction on that phone?
Absolutely.
So the phone worked.
Correct.
All right, Detective Cunningham, you may go on about your day. Stay safe.
We need
It's
the
now-
evidence here, sir.
Yeah,
Make sure it's not.
just leave it there. Yeah, thank you. We'll collect it from the witness stand. All right, it's 11:36. Deputy Lubinsky is not here yet. All right, you have another witness whose testimony will take a short, relatively speaking, amount of time. Okay. All right, we'll start. Yeah, yeah. Okay, that's fine.
You solemnly swear or affirm that the evidence you're about to give will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth.
All right, Detective, when you're comfortable up there, please say and spell your first and your last name for the record and the jury.
Yes, sir. Good morning, everybody. My name is Detective Emily Vanderlaan, VANDER-LAAN.
Got it. All right, and it's Emily, Emily.
Yes, Your Honor.
Okay, very well. You may inquire, Miss Edwards.
Thank you, Your Honor. Good morning.
Good morning, ma'am.
Could you please introduce yourself to the members of the jury? Tell them what you do for a living and for whom.
Absolutely. Again, my name is Detective Emily Vanderlaan. I work for the Palm Beach County Sheriff's Office. I'm in the Violent Crimes Division Homicide Unit.
And Detective, how long have you been a law enforcement officer?
This is my 10th year.
And can you tell us a little bit about how one becomes a law enforcement officer? What do you have to do?
There is an application and a training process at the educator of choice. I personally went to Palm Beach State College and participated in their law enforcement program there. Upon receiving my certification, I began the application process and I was employed by the Palm Beach County Sheriff's Office.
How long were you a regular road patrol deputy prior to ascending to become a detective?
I was a road patrol deputy for approximately 6 years, I believe, 7 years, somewhere around there.
And how long have you been in the violent crimes unit as a homicide detective?
Now 3 years.
Tell us a little bit about that. How does one move from being a road patrol deputy to being a detective?
Sure. So, throughout your career, as I'm sure is with any other career, one develops specific interests based off of the things that we experience and the investigations we become involved in. I became interested in investigations. I was further interested in violent crimes investigations. I always enjoyed the intricacies of the investigations and the just the multifaceted, all the things that were involved in these investigations. So I started turning my training more toward long-term investigations, such as homicide investigations. I was fortunate enough to work for approximately 2.5 years on the state attorney's office's Sober Homes Task Force, during which time I was able to.
It is a narrative, but I'm going to allow her to complete just to explain how she got to where she is on the sheriff's office team. Go ahead.
Thank you.
Yes, sir. I was able to do long-term investigations and work closely with people with a lot of knowledge and a lot of experience. And I was actually able to work my first manslaughter investigation while on that task force. So that was really my firsthand experience with working such a long-term investigation. At that point, I did return to road patrol after the task force, and I focused on going to the Violent Crimes Division and specifically homicide. I applied and interviewed, and I was chosen.
When you become a detective in a violent crimes unit, can you tell us whether or not there is a training program when you actually enter that area of the sheriff's office?
Yes, ma'am.
Tell us about that.
Sure. So there's what's called a UTO, or a unit training officer, and all detectives are required to go through a training process where we are exposed to the different types of calls, different types of investigations that we'll be involved in. And during that time, we get our true training to learn how to do the job. And then clearly, once we are out of training, that's when the real experience starts.
And do you have to go for a point of time where you are assisting other more seasoned detectives prior to getting your own assignments?
Typically, we do follow more seasoned detectives, but depending on the investigator, there isn't a specific time that they wait before you're assigned your first homicide. It varies from person to person.
By the time you are you the lead detective in this case?
Yes, ma'am.
By the time you got this particular case assigned to you and you were assigned as a lead by your sergeant, can you tell us how many other homicide investigations you had completed as a lead investigator?
This particular case was my 4th homicide as lead.
Prior to that, had you also been assist on other persons or other cases involving homicides?
Yes, ma'am.
How many?
Oh, I mean, between road patrol and homicide, it probably say close to 100. Many.
All right. How is a lead detective in a particular case different from any other detective that might assist?
The lead detective, for lack of a better term, takes the lead. Typically, we all work as a team regardless. The entire squad, especially for a homicide, will respond. We all work together. We all have varying levels of expertise, of background and knowledge and time within homicide. So we do work very closely together. But as lead, I am pretty much in charge of the investigation. I am the person who decides ultimately whether or not there's probable cause to arrest the person. And then moving forward after the initial night of the homicide, it is my job to do any and all follow-up.
All right. Can you tell us whether or not you were called out to the initial area where law enforcement came in contact with this case back at 40th and Broadway?
Yes, ma'am.
Is that the first scene you went to?
Yes.
Can you tell us approximately when you arrived?
I arrived at approximately 1:13 in the morning.
And when were the calls for service, or the 911 calls as we colloquially call them, when did those come out?
Well, there were kind of three different things going on. At 12:11 a.m. or 00:11 hours, there were two separate shot spotter activations. Shot spotter is a...
Pause you there for a second.
Okay.
So you're going to tell us now about shot spotter, but basically is that audio recording of gunshots in a particular area?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. And Judge, that's already in evidence. If I could play states, I don't recall actually the numbers. It states 51 for the record.
Okay.
So I sort of interrupted you as you were trying to explain briefly to the jury about shot spotter. We clarify that it is audio only. Talk to us a little bit more about what's happening.
So I believe the Sheriff's Office Communications Division received 12:11 was the time that the shot spotter was activated. The Sheriff's Office was notified at 12 a.m. or 00:12 hours. So that's the first notification of the Palm Beach County Sheriff's Office.
All right. So if you need to refer to your notes, you may. However, it's preferable if you can testify based on your recollection without it being recorded by having read your notes. Okay?
Yes.
And Detective, if you could please just let us know when you need to refer to your notes, I think that would assist.
That's fine.
All right. With the shot spotter notifications, is there also a recording of the actual audio from the shooting?
Yes, ma'am.
And can you tell us whether or not there was audio collected for this particular shooting?
Yes, ma'am.
All right. And while we're getting that populated and ready to play, do you recall the area where the shot spotter notification came out to?
I believe it was in the area of Redwood Drive, which is in Lake Park.
And did that ultimately become the primary crime scene?
Yes, ma'am.
If you could play the first audio clip. And again, for the record, this states 51. Clip 2, please. All right. And if you could next, actually, before you move on from clip 2, Detective, did you notice anything specifically about that clip?
Yes, ma'am.
And what was it about the clip that was of importance?
In the beginning of the clip, it's common for these sound clips to pick up other sounds going on. For example, I'm not saying that's specific to this case, but for example, if somebody's screaming at the time, you may hear it in these audio clips. In this instance, and in this clip that Ms. Edwards is referring to, I could hear what sounded to me like a vehicle revving its engine or driving quickly.
And if you could just play clip 2 again, and I don't know if there's any way to enhance or make it louder. All right, let's try. So that was just a vroom at the beginning, and then you hear the shots.
Yes, ma'am.
All right, if you could keep playing. Clip 3, please. Clip 5, please. And finally, clip 6. Detective, can you tell us in total how many rounds were registered by the ShotSpotter system?
I believe 38 were registered by the ShotSpotter system.
All right, thank you. Okay. So after the ShotSpotter system, were there any additional notifications now returning to the 911 calls?
Yes.
And when was the first 911 call, if you recall?
I would
Actually, can we just focus on the 911 call related to Keyshawn Jones? Do you recall what time that was?
0018 hours, I believe, is the time that West Palm Beach Police Department received a 911 call from Mr. Lowe's phone.
Okay. So you knew from the information collected from that the 911 phone or the phone that was utilized was Mr. Lowe's phone?
Yes, ma'am.
Have you had an opportunity to listen to that recording?
Yes, ma'am.
And have you had an opportunity to speak to the individuals involved in this case?
Yes, ma'am.
Were you able to identify who the caller was?
I believe it was Mr. Lowe.
All right. Now, as the investigation proceeds, I think you referenced that you went to 40th and Broadway. What did you see when you arrived at that location?
When I arrived at the location, I observed a dark-colored sedan that was stopped, kind of parked haphazardly on the property located on the southwest corner of Broadway and 40th. There were many law enforcement officers there at that time because at the time we had both West Palm Beach Police Department as well as the Palm Beach County Sheriff's Office responding. And there were two individuals whom I later learned were occupants of the vehicle, as well as a deceased vehicle in the front passenger seat.
Okay. So let me see if I can slow that down and take that apart.
Sure.
There's a decedent in the front seat of the same vehicle, that dark Cadillac. Is that correct?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. And you said there were two additional occupants that are now outside of the vehicle.
Yes, ma'am.
Did you note in the roadway or near the vehicle any oily substances?
Yes, ma'am.
Could you tell us about that?
Beneath the vehicle was a dark-colored liquid substance.
Did you meet with the individuals that had been inside the vehicle?
Yes, ma'am.
And could you identify for us whom those individuals were?
Yes, ma'am. I spoke with Keyshawn Jones as well as Christopher Lowe.
Were the individuals separated prior to you speaking to them?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Tell us a little bit about what kind of interview is taking place, if any, at this point in the investigation.
They were separate sworn statements at the time. I'm getting initial information, but I am asking very specific questions, so I'm getting a clear picture from their testimony as to what occurred that evening.
I want to ask you a little bit about, prior to arriving on scene, are you essentially a blank slate?
Yes, ma'am.
Do you respond to a call thinking that you already know who the suspect is going to be and who the victims, if there is such a thing, going to be?
Absolutely not.
Okay. And how is it that you go about determining sort of those things?
Well, I mean, as they say, I can only work off of the evidence that I have, the physical evidence that's on scene, the testimony that's provided to me by the involved individuals.
Okay. When you arrived on scene prior to arriving physically, had any firearms been located in this investigation?
No, not prior to arrival.
All right. Tell us briefly about the context of these testimonial statements from Mr. Lowe and Mr. Jones. Did you determine that the area where you were was not the primary crime scene?
Yes, ma'am.
And were you also able to determine that there were other individuals besides these two that were involved in the incident?
Sustained.
Were you able to identify whether or not any other individuals were involved in this incident?
Overruled.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Did you, at that point, stay on scene? And if so, what else did you do besides speaking to the two gentlemen?
I spoke to the two gentlemen. I obtained a consent to search affidavit for the Cadillac for a formal search and processing at a later time.
Where did you obtain that from?
Keyshawn Jones. I did do I'm not going to call it a search because I didn't go through anything, but I did observe quite closely the scene, the decedent, the vehicle as it was, the state that it was in at that time. I also made...
Stop you there before you go further.
Yes, ma'am.
Upon looking at the decedent, did it appear to you that he had been holding any items in his hand?
Oh, well, overruled. I'll let you get into it on cross. Go ahead, you can answer the
Did he
question.
appear to be holding anything in his hand?
No, ma'am.
What can you tell us about the decedent?
I'm sorry, you got to use better grammar than that. Your first question was, did he appear to have been holding? And then you asked, did he appear to be holding?
Okay. Okay.
So the tense was misleading. Got it? All right.